It's about speaking things into existence. When you have like a gut feeling or a gut instinct, or you have that intuitive feeling on something, it's about following through on it. So for me, for example, I remember that I wanted to work with Travis Barker, and this is a really cool story. I was like, I want to work with Travis Barker. I have my why. I know that he'd been in a plane accident and he'd been through severe trauma. Everyone else in the plane accident had died except for him, except for one other person who committed suicide later. He burned 70% of his body. He had been 12 years and he was never going to fly again, because of the trauma that he'd been through. I knew deep down that I could support him and I knew how to help him with that trauma. I didn't know how that would happen, right? It's Travis Barker. You can't just like pick up the phone and call him. Every day in my meditation practice, I'd connect to my why. I'd really just allow myself to be in that space of curiosity, just seeing it as if it's already happened, and it was more about giving value. So rather than what can I get, what can I give? So I really came with that mindset. Every day I'd listen to my intuition, and I remember one day one of my friends from New Zealand came over for a breathwork session and did the breathwork session, and we were talking about Calabasas after the breathwork session, just mentioning about how we grew up in West Auckland and how it's so different here in LA and people just have access to so much abundance, and we were just blown away by it. And at space, I mentioned that I would love to work with Travis Barker. I don't know what called me to say that. I think we were talking about music or something, and he was like, dude, I was over at Travis's house the other week. I'm friends with Travis. Wow. And I had no idea that connection was there. He was like, I'm going to mention it to Travis. I'll put it out there. And the next day, Travis followed me and was messaging me in the DMs. And this is the part where the intuitive and the trust comes in. So I was messaging Travis. He was keen. We were going to do the breathwork session. Then from the moment we started messaging, it was 1 year until we did the first breathwork session because of his tour schedule and everything that he had going on. So fast forward, I rock up on his house, I knock on the door, and I support him, during these sessions, and we do multiple sessions. And then he starts, he got together with Courtney, and then they started flying together, and now he's traveling all around the world. So I know that the breathwork had a catalyst along with Courtney and her deep love for him and desire to travel the world with him. Just through me following that intuitive hit, saying yes to it, and being from a place of service rather than not what can I get, but what can I give, not knowing how it's going to happen, but having the courage to speak it into existence and then to follow through, on taking action on it. That's what I'd say is the power of listening to your intuition. You can literally make the impossible, come true, because there is no real limitations except for the limitations we place upon ourselves. Usually those limitations are from our own conditioning and programming. But if we can move beyond our own programming and our own limits of beliefs, which is the power of breath work, then we can start to access more belief in ourselves, and we can start to really take action on things that matter.
There's two threads I want to pull from that one, and I think, have you subscribed? If not, this is the best time for you to subscribe, whether you're on the YouTube or on the podcast. Why? Because it would be a bummer if you missed out on everything that's to come, or don't subscribe if you're not actually getting much value out of this, because there is a zillion other things that you could be doing. So I'd rather you go and do that. The ball's in your court. The first one I want to pull is, let's call a spade. The conditions and life that you've come from in New Zealand, trauma that you went through, just what you went through to get to here. How that experience can you help someone if they're like, oh, okay, Lukis, my intuition, my inner knowing, my guidance, it's telling me that I want to follow this path, but they're unable to feel worthy or capable of being able to create that or speak it into existence. What do you think's kind of the process that you could recommend, or the breadcrumbs that you could lay down for someone to then actually start taking steps towards that?
So someone who's on the early stages of their own healing journey that doesn't yet believe in themselves or feel free to create that. For me, on a personal level, and I can only speak from personal experience, it's come through the work. It's come through doing the work on myself, because I used to have such a negative, relationship with myself, a lot of negative self-talk, a lot of self-harming, really didn't believe in my ability to create anything, and I didn't feel worthy to create anything. And through doing the inner work, and the inner work I'm talking about is feeling your emotions and working through the trauma and working through things that you've been through in the past that aren't resolved, by bringing a completion and resolving those things, then you start to open up into more self-love. And through that practice of, really healing the past and being more in the present moment and accessing self-belief, you can start to take action on the things that truly matter to you. But it is a journey, and it's really important that people, they take away the pressure, and it's less about the destination and being in a hurry to get there, and more being on the journey of healing. Because for me, it was a 10-year journey. It was a 10-year journey of really battling internally with everything that I had experienced and going through such extreme highs and lows and days that I didn't want to be on this planet, and really kind of going through the struggle. But on the other side of embracing all the darkness and all the suppressed emotions and all the trauma, is so much freedom, is so much self-liberation, is so much love, and there's just so much beauty on the other side of all that pain. So my response to someone who's in that space right now would be to dedicate yourself to the work. And the work could be breathwork journeys, the work could be meditation, the work could be working with psychedelics and shamans, the work could be feeling, around your personal development or your health and fitness journey. It could be around anything that you feel called to put time and energy into that fills up your own cup and allows you to be with what is, and just take away all that judgment and stop. I don't want to say stop, because that's the wrong words, and allow yourself to be with what is in the present moment. So if you wake up and you're suffering, that's what's happening in the moment. If you place more judgment on top of that suffering, then it's like suffering on suffering on suffering. If you wake up and you don't feel good, just acknowledge how you feel. Be with what is. Don't be afraid to sit with your emotions and to feel your emotions and process your emotions in the present moment, because man, we've been so disconnected from our emotions and from sensations in our body, with all kinds of ways to escape and all kinds of ways that we have to cope with what we're feeling and to run away and numb ourselves. And for me personally, the medicine was feeling my emotions.
If you've enjoyed this episode and it's vibed with you, then make sure that you hit subscribe, whether you're on the YouTube or on the podcast. And importantly, if there is any guests that you want me to have on the show, or specific questions or topics that you want me to be able to cover for you, simply put it into the YouTube comments or send me an Instagram DM. That way I can make sure you're getting the most out of actually being here.